The Dental Download Podcast is your source for insight into dental school, conversations with dentists, specialists, and leaders in the industry. With new episodes every Monday morning, I'm your host, Haley Schultz. Let's get into this week's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Dental Download Podcast. This week is a solo episode and we're going to be chatting all about mindset. Really focusing in on growth mindset, but also different elements of mental well-being and figuring out your life path. So it's a very all-encompassing episode when it comes to mindset, but for me, it's going to come down to getting out of your comfort zone, dealing with failures or mistakes, and understanding your vision, your why for your life so that it's easier to do all of that. So that's what we're going to kind of break down today as we go through the episode, and I'm excited to share everything with you. Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily and then distribute it everywhere and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. Here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right away from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify, but also everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available, and you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Did I mention it is totally free? No catch. I've been using Spotify for Podcasters since the very beginning of my show, and now we're nearing our 200th episode. So I can definitely say it's an easy platform, and I've really loved using it. So be sure to download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. You may have noticed that we are jumping right into the episode this week. No lengthy intro because the next solo episode, so 2 weeks from now, is my D3 summer semester recap. I did just finish finals, but I'm not going to give you guys any info about how my first semester seeing patients went and how finals wrapped up. You got to wait 2 weeks for the next episode because this episode is focusing all on mindset. I wrote down a few different notes and I have some outside resources I'm going to try to bring in, but all in all, I hope you're going to get like one or two things from this episode that you can tangibly take away, and just that the whole premise of this episode is motivating to you. I'm obviously not an expert. All I can share is things that have worked for me and things that I have found to be insightful. So that is what we're going to do today. So I mentioned the term growth mindset. To me, growth mindset means going into situations knowing that you have to be uncomfortable. It has to be something that you're not already good at in order to grow as a person, something you're not inclined to naturally, something you don't have a skill set in, something that you aren't amazing at yet, whether that is school, dentistry, a hobby, even a communication skill. I think communication skills are huge and something that a lot of people struggle with up until the point of starting dental school, because you kind of need decent communication skills to get through the interview phase of getting into dental school. And I've talked about this in other episodes, but one way that I put myself out of my comfort zone as an undergrad student was by going to any mock interviews that my clubs put on, as well as applying for leadership positions early on. I started applying freshman year. I didn't really get any freshman year, but I kept applying, and at our school, because they were like pretty competitive spots, you had to go through an interview process with the current executive board. And I probably didn't get them because I probably wasn't a great interviewer and I was only a freshman. But all of those experiences combined, and then eventually getting leadership roles and talking to the different speakers we would bring in of different healthcare professions or dentists, allowed me to really improve my like small talk skills. And I can't say enough how important those small talk skills are in life. So that's one example of a long span of time. Honestly, it was all of undergrad that I had to keep working on what was hard for me, which was making conversations with people And being able to articulate my thoughts, get to know someone, and really connect with people. I obviously could feel like confident doing that with my peers, but it was more people I felt had seniority to me. So the adults, if you will, or the professionals, that's where I felt intimidated. But by going through those experiences, I was able to work through it and grow, hint, hint, topic of the episode, as an individual. So that's one good example. But another thing that I mentioned when I was describing my own definition of growth mindset is accepting mistakes and eventually transitioning your mindset from accepting mistakes to welcoming mistakes, because you know it leads to growth. So first step, if you really hate getting out of your comfort zone, is I have to accept that mistakes are going to happen. And acceptance can be something that takes a long time for you to come to terms with, especially depending on what the mistake or failure or thing you're trying to overcome is. Just accepting that there is an obstacle in your way or that something isn't coming naturally to you. But hopefully, as you progress and mature as an individual, and I'm still very much so working on this part, is going to be welcoming mistakes and welcoming the challenges into your life, because you know that is what makes you grow into the best version of yourself. And all of this comes back to being that best version of yourself and being the self that you want to be. So it's going to circle back to your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And that comes to a lot of discernment. I really like that word. And that's something I thought a lot about back in high school when it was deciding what profession or job I wanted to have when I grew up. And that's when I settled on dentistry after a lot of thought, and in my case, prayer and talking to close mentors and trusted family members. And I settled on dentistry. But there's a lot more levels to why I want to be a dentist. And there's a lot more to me than I want to be a dentist, period. There's a lot more to what I want in the future and what I am continually trying to improve myself for. I have a whole vision for my life. And hopefully that's something you're working on too, as well as you're starting to grow up and experience new things and enter into adulthood. So I can't sit here and tell you what your why is, because it's different for every single person, of course. But I can kind of give you some prompting questions. Maybe you can think about it, journal about it, talk to family and friends about it, talk to mentors about it, pray about it if faith is something that you practice. So long term, like you're 40, 50, 60 years old, what do you want out of all of this work? And because you're listening to this podcast, I can say, how will dentistry fit into your life? Your life doesn't need to fit into being a dentist. Being a dentist, in whatever capacity you want to practice that, needs to fit into your life vision. So you have to establish that vision and then figure out what kind of dentistry makes sense for you. And then all the other stepping stones that you're doing, all the other challenges that you're having to deal with or actively seeking out, if you're really practicing that growth mindset and really want to continue improving, you're going to eventually be welcoming those challenges, like I said, and actively seeking out situations that make you improve yourself. So why are you doing those, and what specific things are you seeking out should make sense for your end goal. So I want to share something that I saw on Instagram on an account that I looked into and really like. It's called New Happy Co. And they have a lot of little graphics that talk about self-improvement and challenging yourself and overcoming negative thoughts or self-doubt. So I really recommend checking out that page. But this post says, when you make a choice, ask one of these three things, or all of these three things. First being, does it align with my goals? Next being, does it help me grow? And last being, will it have a positive impact? And the graphic, I'll try to share it on my story today if I remember, on the Dental Download Podcast Instagram story. But essentially, it's saying that aligning with your goals is going to just push you forward. It's going to push you flat, but forward. Does it help you grow? It might take longer because now you're moving uphill, but you're moving forward and uphill. So it's going to help you grow, but it's not going to be maybe as quick and easy, but it's going to get you propelled in a different direction, higher. And then will it have a positive impact? Isn't necessarily helping you per se, but it's helping the greater society and is still also moving you upward, but not necessarily forward. So it's a pretty interesting graphic. It's probably hard the way I'm explaining it, but I will try to share it so you all can see. And the rest of the episode, I just have a few more things I want to share, kind of on a separate topic of mindset, more into mentality. And that is for some things that work for me if I'm struggling with motivation in school, if I'm dealing with stress or anxiety. So when you're listening to this episode, I'm actually up north because I'm on break with my parents. So my parents just got a little puppy. If you've seen him on my Instagram page at Haley Schultz Dental, I've posted him on the story a couple times, but he's a little Havanese, and we are probably, because I'm recording this in advance, having a lovely time exploring northern Michigan, and it'll also be my first time in the Upper Peninsula, and we'll be doing some kayaking and hiking and just relaxing. So it should be an awesome first week of my break. And as for wrapping up this episode, a couple things that help me. So these are just like literal things I tell myself or things that I specifically practice that can help when my mental space is struggling. So if I'm struggling for motivation in school, it's helped me in the past to literally calculate how much money I'm spending per hour at dental school. It's astounding. And then you consider the fact that sometimes classes are asynchronous or we don't have class 8 to 5, so then it's even more per hour. And I go to a more affordable dental school too. So if you tried this, you might be a little shook and feel a lot more obligated to make the most of this time, because that is a lot of money, like the most money you're ever going to spend in your life probably on one specific thing. So you want to make the most of it. And as for stress and anxiety, I definitely dealt with some like test anxiety this week. During finals at certain points, and certain points I felt more relaxed, and it depended on the class, but it also depended on what kind of practices I was doing. So I love the Headspace app. I don't use it for daytime meditation as much anymore, but when I first started dental school, I used the Headspace app all the time because I had a super anxious first summer of dental school as a D1, and learning how to meditate, learning how to cope with and work through anxious thoughts, and when your body is kind of not cooperating with your mind, how to deal with that. Headspace has a lot of great kind of plans, and you just sit down and do a couple minutes at a time, and they teach you different skills to bring into practice into other situations when you're having a hard time. So I really like that app. But now what I use it for is nighttime sleep meditations. And if I put one of those on, I'm asleep before it even actually finishes. So those work really well for me. And then also my faith, practicing my Christian faith has been a big part of my mentality in dental school, and letting go of control in a way. Obviously, I need to study, I need to do my best, I need to show up and give everything I got because I've been given this great opportunity and all these blessings. But if something doesn't go my way, or if I was expecting a certain outcome and something different happens, I can't get too bogged down about it, because everything is going to work out in God's plan. And by truly, truly surrendering to that belief and truly surrendering to knowing that God is putting you exactly where you're meant to be, that has allowed me to just take a big weight off my shoulders, because I'm not in control. God is in control, and all I can do is my best. And with practicing discernment, like we talked about earlier, follow the path that I believe is the right path for me, and do everything I can to get to the end goal in the life that I have prayed about and believe is the right path. But at any point that can change, and it's something that I have to be able to accept. So that acceptance and kind of letting go has been more possible because of my faith. Another thing is leaning on loved ones. So that kind of goes without explanation, but family, friends, mentors, like chosen family, I love that phrase. All of those people in your life can really help when you're feeling stressed or anxious, and I think it's important to know which type of people to rely on for which type of things. If you just want to go out in the town and forget about everything and have a really fun night, you might have certain friends that you go to. But if you want to never have dental school brought up and not talk about teeth and not talk about exams and not talk about boards, you might go talk to your grandma who knows nothing about dentistry, and she's gonna like bake cookies with you and go to church or go for a walk or something. So you have to kind of know what people to talk to and what people to lean on depending what you're looking for. And again, that comes back to kind of the self-awareness that we keep touching on in this episode. And then the last thing that I would kind of tie in with motivation for school, if you're dealing with stress and anxiety related to school or related to, I guess, preparing for anything, but that would be that preparing will never leave you with regret. You're never going to be like, man, I wish that I didn't study for that test. Because at the end of the day, you got the result that you got because you put in that effort. And the only time that I've felt badly after a test is when I didn't do well because I didn't prepare enough. I've never gotten a good grade on a test and been like, man, I should have just watched TV last night for the extra 4 hours instead of only doing 1 hour of TV and 3 hours of studying. Like, I've definitely practiced balance, but I also know that personally, I need to really push myself now that I've been a student for so long to actually get good studying in. And if I can just convince myself that I need to be prepared, that this is important, that this is going to affect my patients, and this is stuff I need to know, it can also help motivate me a little bit and make me feel like there's a point to it and there is an end to it. If you're like, oh, I have to study until this test, at least you know that after that you're free, like I am right now because I'm on break for 2 weeks. So I think that's where I'm going to end this week's episode. I hope you all got something tangible out of it. I know we kind of jumped around from a lot of different topics, but I just wanted to give you all some motivation. And I obviously don't know every single one of you listening, and I don't know every different situation that you might be going through, but hopefully you can apply something from my experiences or my advice to your own life, and it can make things go a little bit smoother for you or alleviate a little bit of stress. With all that being said, I will talk to you next Monday when we have a guest. His name is Dr. Kyle Polson, and he is a general dentist out in Colorado, I believe, or maybe California. You'll find out next week. So thank you all so much for listening, and I will talk to you then.